car companies are tracking your driving habits and selling that data, sometimes to your detriment. This is MacVoices. Today's edition of MacVoices is brought to you by the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter. Visit macvoices.com/newsletter today, sign up, and stay up to date. I don't know if this is going to take up the rest of the show or not, but we're going to see what happens. And this is an article. In fact, I'm throwing a number of links in case you aren't able to get through. This is an article about vehicles capturing your information, sharing it through LexisNexis with the insurance companies, and tracking you, not necessarily location, but tracking how long you're in the car, any hard braking, any hard acceleration, those kind of things. About the only thing it doesn't do is it say that I went from my house to Jeff's house and back. But it tells you, when you got in the car and how many minutes you were in the car, and eventually then, you got back in the car and you traveled so many more minutes. And I don't, and I know Webb is in insurance. I'm in insurance. David had to step away for a second. He's in insurance. I'm not excusing the insurance companies here, but I think this is more about the car companies, because the insurance companies almost have to do this to be competitive. What I mean by that is I have my opinions about which carriers would be super aggressive in this and which ones would be reluctant. But bottom line is, if you're going to be competitive, once one uses it, everyone's going to have to use it, or they will just be completely non-competitive. So having said that, I want to turn it, though, to the car companies gathering this information up and selling it the way they're doing it, with virtually no transparency when it comes to the users or even knowing about this. And the story that seemed to trigger this is a gentleman who got a 21% premium increase. He went to the trouble of asking his company about it, did some detective work, and came up with this. So, is this okay? Mark's waiting frantically. Mark?
Yeah, it's deja vu all over again. Yeah, I think I agree with you, Chuck, that in insurance companies, they compete in an arms race. Once one of them uses it, they all will. I also think that I think in the exchange we had in our Slack channel about topics going into this, Webb pointing out that Tesla captures all this driving information, and my understanding is Tesla also captures a lot more of video information to help train their models. So, I first threw this story out there, and I think it's not so much that companies are capturing and using this information, because I could take the same glass, and instead of the half empty, the car companies and insurance companies are spying us, I'll make it a half full. This could be used to help people improve, their driving capabilities, just like the Prius, would allow people to understand, if you're suddenly accelerating, you're using, much more gas mileage. So, as a technology is both positive, has both positive and potentially negative applications. I think the fault here, and I think the salaciousness that made it a New York Times story, was that they caught car companies were doing this without either any consent by their clients, the people who bought that car with them, or it's buried in the middle of a license agreement that they have to read and sign up and page through on their on the console monitor in their car. So I think that's the news here. And again, the deja vu part is for our listeners is, this is yet again another area where you have to be careful. Every time you have a smart device that gets connected to the internet, it's a potential spy, and you have to evaluate what are the benefits, what are the costs, and decide if you want to use it or not. Back to you,
Ben.
If anybody remembers all the the talk of GM having their own infotainment system without CarPlay or Android Auto. It's the same thing. They want to maximize what revenue they can get out of that car, and it and part of that is selling your data.
Jim?
Well, Tesla actually it sells insurance, and when they do that, they base it on the data from your car, but they're explicit about it. Nobody goes into it not realizing that. I know about it because I've read about it on forums, and so, but I think it's not cool if car manufacturers are doing that without your consent.
And I want to hark back to several months ago. I guess it was months at this point. And we joked about it a lot, and it'll get some giggles here. But apparently, car companies were also collecting information on people's sex lives in their car. And it's like, how did they do that? What sensors are they using? How are they determining that? But at the end of the day, it's there. And this is where I can jump up on my soapbox. Jeff loves to see me jump on my soapbox.
I'm all about that.
But we have all these legislative investigations into so many things, and yet here it is. It's big business, and it's being done behind our backs. I have no problem with Tesla doing it if they're telling me they're doing it. If my insurance company offers me a dongle to stick in my car to send them information so that they can potentially give me a lower rate, potentially not, but potentially give me a lower rate, I'm fine because I know I'm doing it. The fact that these companies are doing it without disclosure that is transparent and adequate is the disturbing part.
Well, as a precursor, I agree they shouldn't be doing this without your knowledge. Okay. Let's a couple things about insurance. I'm putting on my insurance hat. Forgive me. Is that first of all, remember there's no national insurance legislation. Insurance is all measured at the individual state level. Keep that in mind. The issue with what was the point? We all, as an insurance company, and I'm not in car insurance. Let's also keep that in mind. I'm not in the automobile insurance business at all. Do you think that insurance is nothing more than how you manage personal risk management? And an insurance company is looking at you and determining what kind of automobile insurance coverage they want to charge. You say how much insurance you want, they tell you how much it's going to cost. Do you think they're going to get as much information from everyone that they can? They're going to look at your driving record. Okay. They're going to get that from the state. They're going to see if you have lots of speeding tickets, whether you've had lots of accidents, just some of this other thing. There's always been this issue where insurance companies are going to use as many resources as they can to get information to assess what the risk is. Going in and looking at my personal driving habits, I got some problems with that. But I also drive a Tesla, and I also know that information is being recorded by Tesla. I've had some service issues on my car, and they know when my right rear tire's 10 pounds low on air. Okay, they know everything that's going on with that vehicle. So anyway, just insurance companies are always going to use as many resources as they can to determine what the price is that they're going to charge. And keep in mind, we talk about this case where somebody had a 21% increase in cost, but we don't want to talk about the other side of it where someone may have had a discount because they put in the dongle and they're a safe driver, and who was not principal but the guy on TV right now that's the safe drivers kind of stuff. Anyway, that's it. Just some things to think about.
Absolutely. Brittany Smith has joined us for the first time in a long time. Britt, it's so good to see you. Thanks so much for stopping in.
You can thank the car companies for enraging me. I'm just teasing. I love to see you guys.
We've missed you. Jeff's got another comment, and then we're going to let you. We're going to turn you loose.
Mine's actually a question, because on the comment side, I would probably go way too long because of the fundamental issues that I have with so much of what's happening here. But here's my question: when your insurance provider is tracking your car usage, and they present that to you as, look, this is how you're going to end up with lower rates because we'll be able to track that you're a safe driver. Does anyone know anyone that's ever had the rates go down from this? And
Yes.
And I'm not asking
Yes.
like a smart ass thing, but just like legit, I've never heard of anyone.
Yes,
I have. Me.
Okay.
I have.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a fair question, Jeff, because we all tend to believe the worst of some of the big companies. But yes, there are some.
Yeah, and to be clear, I was not trying to ask like a snark question.
Hmm.
I generally had never encountered anyone that knows someone that did have the rates go down. But Ben knows someone, and
Yeah,
someone
me.
else said that they knew someone. So okay, awesome.
I mean, granted, my rates didn't go down by much, but they went down.
Okay, so it's not just of someone; it is literally you. So this is
Yes.
firsthand. Okay,
Yes, I
even
had
better.
the progressive snapshot hooked up.
Okay, cool.
And Jeff,
Jeff, did you ever were you ever 24 years old and have car insurance?
It's a wonder that I could pay it.
You should have seen. You probably saw a decrease when you turned 25, assuming that
yeah.
you were a safe driver.
Yeah.
So there were just different plateaus that insurance companies use too. So
yeah, and to be fair, Jeff, there's always a debate that rages a little bit that because you're being tracked and you're being tracked, are you maybe engaging in safer driving habits as opposed to just being out there where you feel like you're all alone, even though apparently, according to what we're talking about here, you're not alone.
Do we have time for me to ask one other question?
We got plenty of time.
Okay.
Take all the time we need.
So my related question is, does anyone know the context for the data? And what I'm meaning is, your car says, "Oh, you accelerated really fast right here, and you braked really hard right here." Without context, that data doesn't have much value. Were you having to accelerate to get on the highway? Were you braking because a child ran out in front of your car, or someone swerved into your lane, and by doing an aggressive acceleration or braking, you actually avoided an accident? And again, something that I'm genuinely asking because I don't know.
Jeff, those are all great questions, and those were things that the Times article raised. And no, they don't have any of that. They just have sort of a timestamp as of this date on this time you accelerated dramatically, and at this date you broke hardly. They don't even define what those terms mean. So
that it could be different for every carrier.
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
And maybe different for every reporting device. So it's sort of a wide open, wild west, no standards.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, with that, not those insurance premiums will be calculated not by your driving alone, but potentially by the behavior of those drivers around you who could also cause an accident.
Right. And they just want to know, do they put you in the good driver group or the bad driver or the crappy or the horrible driver group or whatever the names of their buckets are? I'd use that to illustrate the point.
And
They'll
Jeff,
look at,
go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
yeah, they can, so what Webb was saying, they'll look at their pool of insured, and then they'll assess you. They'll use this as new information to assess your relative risk to other groups or subgroups of that pool.
Yeah, and Jeff, I think I can't speak for an insurance company, but the discussions I've had and my understanding as it's been presented is it's not a case of, even though the article reports, this guy had so many instances of hard braking or hard acceleration, they tend to look more toward trends. Are you constantly accelerating, hard accelerating or hard braking? I don't think, you slam on your brakes once to avoid an accident. That's not going to drive your rates up. If you're doing it 40 times a week,
then you're driving in Boulder.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Yeah. Dave, I'm sorry, I've skipped over you. Britt's next, but you're up.
I just have a brief comment. I mean, I do work in the insurance industry, but I don't work for a company that does car insurance. Is that a disclaimer? My opinion is that we've talked about this before. Even those devices that the insurance companies are trying to offer for you to plug into your connector to monitor what you drive. Okay, you have control over that. Well, in this instance, if the car manufacturers are doing this, shame on them. I don't think that's something that we should be subject to if we don't want to. We should be able to have the option to opt out of this. And then, from what I'm understanding of the article and reading through what this discussions have been, that's not something I think should be utilized. And I'm hoping there's some level of not truths here as far as what this discussion is. So that's all I had.
Yeah. Britt, I know you said you had a lot of feelings about this. I want to hear them all.
Although it's true, and I actually really like the point that you can use the data for good because data is neutral, right? Like, what are you using it for? But it's anonymized when you're using it for good, almost always, and not personal data. I know this is an issue of consent, but I would argue that it should always be informed consent. And an I accept when you start up your car is not informed consent. It's not somebody saying, hey, you know what? Your insurance rates could go up because of this. And we're taking a kickback for it. Like, that's not probably what those say in easy to understand language. There's just a lot of ramifications, and it can go beyond that. And once information's out, it's out, and it's available. It's obtainable. It could be obtainable by even more nefarious things. Sorry, not slamming insurance. More nefarious purposes than your insurance rates. It's not super likely, but it's always possible, and that's always my concern with these things. I may never have CarPlay now because my husband's always into old cars anyway, and there's a pretty good argument for not getting a super new car now, because I don't love the idea of being tracked. It kind of creeps me out.
Are you going to leave your phone at home?
No, but I also have some amount of control and knowledge over what's being tracked and where it goes because I have an iPhone, and I encourage those things when they change.
But that's the same as CarPlay.
No, what I meant is a car that's new enough to have CarPlay is also a car new enough to track me. It was a correlation.
Mm-hmm. You used a pretty strong word there, kickback, and that sort of sums up the way I feel about this. That with Webb and Jim saying, well, we know it. I don't feel it's like, okay. I don't know that. Do either one of you, have they ever given you an option to opt out? Marty just asked us in a private chat. Can you opt out of sharing your information with them?
What are you talking about?
About the EULA for
I'm pretty
your
sure
Teslas.
the answer is no. The
the
act of
Teslas?
using the car is implied consent.
Or the act of using whatever services in the car is consent. It's not just the car itself. And again, there's other complaints in there that apparently GM offers spiffs to their salespeople to get people to sign up for it. So just like Wells Fargo, a couple of years ago was caught, creating fictitious accounts for users. There's cases of unscrupulous GM salespeople signing people up for accounts, even though everything's never activated, even though they never pay for it to get billed. It just flips a bit, so it's turned on. So when you drive it off the lot, you're being tracked.
Unscrupulous GM salespeople? You will never convince me that there is such a thing.
Jim, I'm shocked. There's gambling and drinking going on that casino.
Webb, you own a Tesla. I mean, do you know? You know that you're being tracked, right? But
I know it. Yeah.
Do you know if you have the option to opt out? I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't believe Tesla doesn't give that information to insurance companies, but you can buy insurance through
except their own company.
Except their own. But you don't have to do that. That's a and if you do that, they tell you, and I believe it even shows you a report that's like, here's how you drove, and I think they adjust the premiums like maybe even monthly.
Let me ask this question. In the article, they talked about that the one gentleman had a car, but it was a leased vehicle. So couldn't it be part of the lease documents that they get to monitor, as opposed to being a purchase vehicle? Just hypothetically, could that be part of the lease agreement?
It's possible, and like I was saying, it's buried.
It's buried. Yeah. And I don't want anyone to think that I agree with this concept. I don't. But Jim, also one of the brands they talked about here was Hyundai and Kia, and you just bought your Genesis. That's in that category. That's in that family. So
I ran the website Jeff posted on my car, and it says Genesis data practices is that they are silent on insurance and data brokers, and that they will share with government.
Yeah, if you click on the little icon for government, it'll show you. Well, if you click on the little icons where they're providing information, it'll give you more details about that.
It wasn't at all obvious to me that you could click on it.
I figured it out by clicking on things.
I don't know. I don't know if there's any resolution of this. It's one of those things, though, that I think people need to be more aware of. Just like every instance we bring up here, where you're being tracked, your data is being sold without your knowledge. If you're signing up for it and you know it, great. And I think it's pretty much assumed at this point, because of the nature of cell technology, that if we're carrying phones, we're being tracked one way or another. And so sometimes that might even include your presence in a vehicle, because I know, depending on what my speed is, I'm getting notifications about different things. So from different apps. So I know that's going on. But it's the idea that all this data is being sucked up and sold behind our backs without, and to use Brittany's word, kickback. I don't know. I guess because we've agreed to it, even though we didn't know we agreed to it, maybe doesn't meet the definition of a kickback. It just feels like it. So we have several panel members who have just given me their warning that they've got to head out for various reasons. So we're going to wrap this up. But thank you all. Great discussions tonight. A lot of different viewpoints. I love it when we don't agree. But we enlighten folks. So this time I'm going to, first of all, cameras are going on and off, so the things have gotten jumbled. But I'm going to give Britt the honor of being the first out. Brittany, please come back. I know that you have other considerations right now, but anytime you want to pop in, even for a few minutes, you're always welcome.
Aw, thank you.
So where can folks find you when you're not here?
When I'm not here, My website's conquer.consulting. I, when I can, put up videos on YouTube and TikTok under at ADD Liberator. And I also have our fun little group, the ADHD Guild.
Great. Good to see you.
Thank you, Chuck.
Dave Ginsburg, what are you doing down at the bottom of my screen? Where can folks connect with you? You're muted, Dave. Dave's keyboard.
That might help. Sorry about that. Yeah, thank you for having me, Chuck. You can find me at InTouchWithIOS at InTouchWithIOS.com. YouTube channels, youtube.com/InTouchWithIOS. I'm here on Tuesdays. I'm on the Mac Show on the British Tech Network on Fridays. And you can find me on Mastodon at DaveG65 at Mastodon.club. Thanks again.
Thank you, Dave. Eric Bolden, with your chickadee, where can folks connect with you?
Out in the woods, under the trees. No, I can be found on Mastodon at EA Bolden at techhub.social or EA Bolden at mas.to.
Great. Thank you, Eric. Web Bixby, with a new quilt this week. I hope we have another good one next week. Where can folks connect with you?
Thank you, Chuck. I'm going to follow what normally is Mark's lead, and you can get me at Twitter at WebBixby.
Great. Thank you. Or X.
Or X.
However you want to refer to it.
I'm old school.
Yeah, I know. It's tough to say X when the URL is Twitter, so I don't know. But there's nothing confusing about Ben Roethig. Ben, thanks for being here. Where can we find you?
Well, Chuck, you can find me on the confusing array of social media at Ben Roethig. You can find my writings at roethig.tech. On Thursday nights, you can find me on this little show that's quickly approaching its 300th episode called In Touch with iOS with Dave Ginsburg. On Thursday and Friday mornings, depending on where you are, you can also find me on both British Tech Network shows, The Big Show and The Mac Show, interim hosted by that Jeff Gamet guy. And always, you can find me here on MacVoices Live with Chuck Joyner.
Thank you, Ben. Good to have you. I know one place you can find Jim Ray, and that is being tracked by his new car. But other than that, Jim, where can we find you if we don't want to just know every little detail about your life?
Just log on to the car. You can find me on the internet at provue.com, PROVUE.com. You can find me on Mastodon, ProView Jim at techhub.social. By the way, don't look for me there, but I like to call it Twitter. And I don't know if this will, come on. You can see that I still have a Twitter app on my iOS devices. And it still works. I just haven't updated it since they changed the name. And surprisingly, it still works.
I haven't tried that. That's a good point, huh?
Well, you can't. If you've ever done it, you're out of luck.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Well, unless he's using iMazing, then he can go into his backups and pull the app out of there.
Can you? All right.
Yeah. Good point.
Go for it.
Good point. So apparently our new week around backup expert, Jeff Gamet. Jeff, where can folks connect with you?
Oh, Chuck, we should do one of our crazy backup discussions at some point. And we can talk about just how over the top I am, but I don't lose data.
Yes.
Okay, so when I'm making sure I'm not losing my data, you can find me on the various social medias as Jay Gamet, and I am active right now on Mastodon, Instagram, and Threads. And then for shows here on Tuesdays, thank you for letting me join in on MacVoices Live. Then on Thursdays, Dave, thank you for letting me join in on In Touch with iOS. Then on the British Tech Network, the Big Show on Thursdays, the Mac Show on Fridays. And isn't it amazing how wonderfully tolerant Ben is, that he will show up on multiple shows each week where I am as well. I'm pretty sure that makes you a saint. And then also Brian Chaffin and I do the Context Machine.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Marty Jencius, in spite of being a little under the weather, thanks so much for being here. Listen to that Barry White baritone. That's good.
Yeah, I love to love you, baby.
Did it just get hot in here?
Where can folks find you and pick up your next album?
I don't have as long a resume as my predecessors. You can find me at Jencius, Jencius, at mastodon.social. And then 2 podcasts that I do and produce, The Tech Savvy Professor and Circular Firing Squad.
Thank you, Marty. Hope you feel better.
Thanks.
Mark Fuccio, another great background. We'll look forward to another one next time. Where can folks connect with you?
Oh, that site, known as Zitter, X. At Mark Fuccio, MarkFuccio. Simple as easy. And if you want to get me in LinkedIn, you can use my name and get me there too.
Is that how you pronounce it? Zitter? That's interesting.
X, formerly known as Twitter, Zitter.
Okay. Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, let's start a movement, Chuck.
Yeah. There we go.
What kind of movement?
I was waiting for that. Brian Flanigan-Arthurs, thank you so much for being here. Please get me out of this. What's the over/under on whether we make it out tonight?
Oh, I hope so. As a betting man, though, we'll see.
Where can we find you, Brian?
Mastodon is probably the best way. I'm over at Brian8944 at mastodon.cloud.
Great. Thanks so much.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices Live. We do this on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We ran quite long tonight, so I'll probably break this up into several shows that go into the feeds. But we had a lot of great discussions, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on some of the topics we talked about, one or all. So you can always drop me a line at chuck@macvoices.com. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.